So lesson 2. Last week we spoke about the story of Adam and Eve and the purpose of where they were why they were in the Garden of Eden, and the purpose of creation and everything like that. Today we're going to move on to the second portion of the Torah, which includes another incredible story. The book of Genesis, the book of Bereshit, almost every week has another incredible story that we can learn and expand upon. So this is the story of Noah and the story and the lessons that we can learn. Noah's Ark. Are we working here? Hold on. Let me make sure that my slideshow is sliding. And hold on. Here we go. Story of Noah's Ark. And we begin with a video. The video is going to explain lesson text 1A and 1B. So you feel free to follow along. I'm going to mute my video.
God saw that the evil of man was multiplying upon the earth, and that every impulse of the thoughts of his heart is only evil all day, and he was pained to his heart. And God said, I will erase the human being that I have created from upon the face of the earth, from man to beast, to crawling thing, to bird of the heavens, for I have regretted that I have made them. But Noah found grace in the eyes of God. These are the chronicles of Noah. Noah was a perfectly righteous man in his generations. Noah walked with God. Noah fathered 3 sons, Shem and Ham and Japheth. God saw the earth, and behold, it was corrupted, as all flesh had corrupted its way on the earth. And God said to Noah, the end of all flesh has come before me, as the earth is filled with violence from them, and here I will destroy them from the earth. Make yourself an ark of gopher wood, and coat it from within and from without with pitch. And thus you shall make it 300 cubits, the length of the ark, 50 cubits its width, and 30 cubits its height. Bottom, second, and third levels you shall make it. And here I will bring the flood of water upon the earth. All that is on the earth shall expire. I will establish my covenant with you, and you will come into the ark, you and your sons, and your wife, and your sons' wives with you. And from all that lives, 2 of each, bring into the ark to keep alive with you, male and female they should be. And Noah did as all that God commanded him. In the 600th year of Noah's life, in the 2nd month, on the 17th day of the month, all of the well springs of the great deep split open, and the hatches of the heavens were opened. And the rain was upon the earth 40 days and 40 nights. The waters increased, and they lifted the ark, and it rose above the earth, and the ark moved upon the surface of the waters, and the waters surged upon the earth 150 days. God remembered Noah and all the animals that were with him in the ark. And God made a wind pass over the earth, and the waters subsided. In the 7th month, on the 17th day of the month, the ark rested upon the mountains of Ararat. The waters went on diminishing. In the 10th month, on the 1st of the month, the tops of the mountains were seen. And it was in the 601st year, in the 2nd month, on the 27th day of the month, the earth was fully dried. And God spoke to Noah to say, "Go out from the ark, you and your wife, and your sons wives with you. All the animals that are with you, take them out with you." Noah built an altar to God, and he brought up ascent offerings on the altar. God smelled the soothing aroma, and God said to his heart, "Nevermore shall I again curse the soil on account of man. For the impulse of the heart of man is evil from his youth, and nevermore shall I again smite all living things, as I have done." God blessed Noah and his children, and he said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. And the awe and dread of you will be upon all animals of the earth. In your hands they are given." God said to Noah and to his children with him to say, "And here I am establishing my covenant with you, and with your seed after you, and with all living souls that are with you. My bow I have set in the cloud, and it shall be a sign of covenant between me and the world. And it will be, when I darken clouds upon the earth, and the bow will appear in the cloud. And I will remember my covenant, which is between me and you and all living souls, that the waters will not again become a flood to destroy all flesh. This is the sign of the covenant that I have established between me and all flesh that is upon the earth."
You're muted.
I'm sorry, I muted it so there's not double volume. So really, the story of Ark of Noah is about 75 verses. We took about 40 verses. There's a lot more to expand on, and we can ask many more questions. But today we're going to focus on few questions, not all of them, and we're going to try to learn a lesson. Let's begin over here. Oops, in the story, my mount for the camera is wrong. Okay. In the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, in the story of Sodom, when God comes to Avram and says that I'm going to destroy everyone, what does Abraham say? Abraham says, I'm going to bring the camera a little closer. Over here, so this way, I feel like I'm talking to somebody. I can see you guys. So Abraham says, can it be that the God of justice won't do justice? Are you just going to kill everyone indiscriminately? So one of the questions is, where's God's fairness? Why is it? Why is it that God is killing everybody, the children and the animals? We understand that God wants to destroy the wicked. Why is God killing everybody? So that means that the flood wasn't just a punishment, it was also a reflection of God's regret of creation. That means that God had a plan, and somehow it got corrupt. So question number one we have is, why was the entire world destroyed? Number two, and this is going to be a little bit of a drawn out question, but follow me. As we discussed last week, the foundation of the creation of the world is free choice, right? We said that everyone has to have a free choice. Now, free choice goes both ways. Free choice meaning the person is supposed to use his free choice to make the world a better place. But on the other hand, a person can also use his free choice to be very corrupt. So the first question is, how is the flood of fear response? The second question is, the very purpose of the world requires free choice. Where's the other one? All right. So, and what happened was the world became very, very, very corrupt, and it passed the point of no return, as you can see on page 38 in lines 16 and 17. That means there came a point, because God had to allow for free choice. Because if there was no free choice, there would be no realization of his plan. And with free choice, every human being can do what he wants, the good and the bad. So what happened? People used their free choice for the bad. And it came to a point where God said, like you see, God saw the earth was corrupted, and all flesh was corrupted. Actually, the word for corrupted over here is nishchata, which really means destroyed. So what happened was God gave the humanity a choice, and the world really destroyed itself. Okay, so what did God have to do? God had to destroy the world. So now, let's say it happens again. Let's say humanity gets so bad. Wouldn't it reason that if we have the same free choice, that God would destroy the world again if we utilized our free choice in the same way that the pre-deluge people used their free choice? The logic would seem for you would have to say yes. Because if they didn't have free choice before the flood, you can't punish them. If they had free choice and they corrupted it, and because of the corruption they caused in the world, God destroyed the world. So what happens if later generations utilize their free choice? Wouldn't God come and destroy the world again? Again, I want to invite everyone, if you have a question, please just chime in and interrupt me. So the problem is like this. God makes a promise that he will never destroy the world again. You saw it was corrupted, but what happens? There you go. God promises the world will never flood again. And God said, "Never more shall I again smite all living things as I have done." God made a covenant with the rainbow, humanity and all living creatures. The waters will not again become a flood to destroy all flesh. So the question is, what changed? Why is it that before humanity got so bad and they deserve destruction, and now God's saying that no matter how bad you get, I will never destroy the world again. When you look at the text, the question is even more compelling. The question is even stronger. Because what we're saying is that basically there was a change. That on one hand, before the flood, humanity got so bad that they deserve destruction. And on the other hand, we're saying after the flood, no matter how bad humans got, we won't destroy them because, in a way, it's not their fault. If you look at figure number 2.1 on page 44, this is some of the text from the end of the Parshat Bereshit, where it talks about the corruption of man, and on the right side is the text from the portion of Noah, which is after the flood. God saw that every impulse of the thoughts of man is only evil, and he was pained in his heart. He said, "I'm going to erase all humanity." Then on the right side, you see God said to his heart, "Never more shall I curse the soil on account of man, for the impulse of man is is evil from his youth. So the very same reason that God destroys the world is now a reason that God should not destroy the world. The very same basic reason drives both decisions. Doesn't seem to make sense. So on one hand, you'll debate. Well, sometimes human beings, because they're inclined towards bad, that means we have to deal harshly with them. On the other hand, you'll say, if human beings are inclined towards bad, we have to understand, because they're born that way. So what changed? What changed? Prior to the flood, the default conclusion is that when man passes a certain point, they deserve destruction. And after the flood, they said that no matter how bad, the default conclusion was that the world can always have a second chance. If someone doesn't understand the question, please ask. Anyone have any questions before we move on to the next one? You can unmute yourself and ask.
Can the destruction of mankind be different than a flood?
That's a great question. Well, the destruction we're talking about over here is not just of man. By the flood, God didn't just destroy mankind. God destroyed everything, all living things. And in the Torah it says that never again will the seasons cease to be. There will always be winter and summer. So can there be a destruction of part of mankind? Yes. All of mankind? No. That is actually interesting that you bring that up, that when God told Noah to be fruitful and multiply, God, and we see the concept of covenant there. So Rashi says, why the covenant? So Noah asked God, you want me to reproduce, and then you're going to get angry and you're going to wipe out my children. So God said, no, I'm never going to wipe out entire humanity again. Any other questions? Oh, I'm trying to, I got to get a new holder for my phone.
Said Noah was 600 years old.
Yes.
How many children, grandchildren did he have? Or great-grandchildren, or great-grandchildren?
Well, actually, he had his first child at 500 years old. And they waited until 100 years to have children. And Shem, Ham, and Yafet did not have any children prior to the flood. They only had children after the flood. So the amount of people that went into the ark was 8. Yeah. Noah, his 3 sons and their wives. Okay.
The flood destroyed all the animals and all of humanity that were not in the ark.
Animals, humans, birds, trees, everything.
Right, except for the fish.
Except for the fish.
Okay. So, could it be a reason Hashem felt that the animals should be spared because the animals were not, they don't have the same type of workings as man? That
you mean free choice, intelligence?
Right. They're just driven on instinct, and yeah.
So you're reinforcing the question. According to your logic, God should not have destroyed the animals; should have only destroyed human beings. Yes.
Right. Yeah, but he couldn't. But he couldn't do that
because
actually, how do you separate the animals and the humans? Oh, that's why I think that's why he had Noah to build the ark.
Well, interesting. Okay, so first of all, you're talking about God, the Almighty. God has an ability to separate. So, for example, in the 10 plagues, when God says, listen, only the animals of the Egyptians are going to die, only the firstborns are going to die, God can pick and choose who he wants to pick off. which kind of leads into the next question. The next question is, let's go back to the story of Sodom, right? The story of Sodom, God tells Abraham they're very wicked and they're going to be destroyed. How long does that destruction take? Immediately. It happens in one morning, in one moment. We read last week in the Torah portion, God caused the fire and brimstone to rain down, and God turned over the whole plateau. It was instantaneous destruction. God can do that. He's God. He's the boss. Yet, we find in the story of Noah, it's a whole drawn out affair. If you follow the calendar, and if you look at Appendix 1, page 64, there's a timeline there. The whole timeline of the flood, from the beginning of the rain until Noah exits the ark, 365 days. Not counting what the Midrash tells us was 120 years it took Noah to build the ark. So this was a long drawn out affair. Why? So God can save Noah and his family and the animals. Why didn't God just, you want to kill all human beings? Do whatever you want. You're the boss. You can do what you want. Why was it all necessary? Look at text number 2. Reb Meir Simcha of Devinsk asked this question, page 45. The flood lasted a full 12 months, a solar year. This, despite the fact that the entire flood was a supernatural event, obviously, and the survival of Noah and the animals in the ark required divine intervention, obviously. Being that this was the case, why couldn't God simply destroy all creations in a single instant? If we're saying that God was wanted the laws of nature to flow, so we understand Noah had to build the ark. It took time. He had to gather the animals. Takes time. The flood waters had to rise up, which we know, here in West Broward, that's been happening over a short time. Imagine the rain for 40 days and 40 nights, we'd all be in big trouble. Fine. But the whole event is supernatural. All of a sudden, God decides, no. For this part, we're going to let the rules of nature play out. Doesn't seem to make sense. Question number 3. After Noah comes out of the ark, again, if you have any questions, feel free to interject. After Noah comes out of the ark, God says, I smell the aroma of the sacrifice, and God says, I'm going to make a covenant with you, Noah, and I'm going to bring a rainbow that there will never again be destruction. And he says, and when I darken clouds upon the earth, and Rashi explained, when it arises in my mind to bring darkness and destruction to the world, the rainbow, the bow will appear in the clouds. So we have over here the rainbow, which is a natural phenomenon. It will be caused by the rays which pass through the water and diffract light. So what kind of sign was this? Was there no rainbows before the flood? Actually, some commentaries suggest that there were no rainbows before the flood. That the very nature of the world was changed, the very atmosphere was changed by the flood. Fine. We'll give it to you. But what's the connection between the phenomenon of the rainbow and now the new world order after Noah's Ark? What does one got to do with the other? Why is the rainbow a sign that God will never be destruction? Okay. Everyone got all the questions? We got a lot of questions. And we got to knock off some answers. Here we go. We are now going to see that the first portion of the Torah, Bereshit, Genesis, and the second story of the Torah are actually a lot more similar than we think. Specifically, the beginning of Bereshit. In the beginning of Genesis, we read about how God created the world in 6 days. And in the next portion of Noah, we read about the destruction of the world. But if you look closely, it's not, the story isn't that the human race, that God created and assigned to have a leading role, turned against its creator and purpose, and descended into violence and decadence and immorality. And one man, Noah, was righteous, and God saved him. It's actually not just a restart, it's really a new creation. It's a remake. And what we're going to do now in text number 3, we're going to take in text number 3, a text from the creation, from the book, from the portion of Genesis, portion of Bereshit, and we're going to compare it to some key elements in the story of Noah, and we're going to see they're actually very, very similar. So, if you remember, the very first verse is that God created the world, right? In the beginning, God created the heaven and earth. What's the second verse? It's text number 3. And the world was desolate and void, and darkness was on the face of the watery depth. Watery depth. That means in the beginning, the world was covered in water. There you go. Then it says, and it says, in the spirit and the wind, the spirit of God, the spirit of God hovered upon the surface of the waters. And then God made the firmament, and he separated between the waters that are below and the firmament and the waters that are above the firmament. And God said, the waters below the heavens shall pool to one place, and dry land shall be seen. If you haven't yet already noticed some similarities, we're going to go through. Here we go. In the creation story, world emerges from water. The same thing after the ark, after the story of the Teva, after the flood, Noah, the new world emerges from water after the flood. Secondly, what causes the you go. We'll take a step back. What causes the spirit? What causes the waters to recede? It says, and the spirit was upon the waters. Let me find a text. Let me see if it's in here. Yes, if you look at line 55, on text 1a, and God made a wind to pass over the earth. So just like before, there was the Spirit of God. So too we have over here. Then we have the concept of God separating the waters, and God made the physical waters recede in the stories of the ark. So too, God made the waters recede in the creation story. Let's go through it. In the creation story, God created the world. Says, "Vayehi ar," let there be light, let there be. Now the Hebrew word is or teva. Now the Hebrew word for ark is also teva. So the word teva, which is ark, also means word, which represents, this is another similarity where God created the world through words, and here we have it again. Number 3. If you look at figure 2.2 on page 47, you'll find that the blessing that God gives to Adam is almost identical to the blessing that God gives to Noah when he comes out of the ark. In both times, God tells them to be fruitful and multiply, and conquer and dominate the fish of the sea. And then to Noah, he tells them, be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth. The awe and dread of you will be upon the animals and the earth and upon the birds of the heaven. That is similarity number 3. Similarity number 4. Again, if I'm going too fast, I'm not explaining something, please ask me to repeat it. Similarity number 4. In both stories, the characters are placed in a utopian world. Adam is placed in the Garden of Eden, and then he's commanded to leave the Garden of Eden to develop an imperfect world that lies outside. And the same thing is, Noah was in the ark. Now, interestingly, if you look at text number 4, the Rebbe Maharash, the 4th Chabad Rebbe of Shmuel of Lubavitch, says the life in the ark was a hint, was the idea of the Messianic age. Why? Because if you look in the book of Isaiah 11:6, and again, I'm paraphrasing from text number 4, it says, the lamb and the calf, and the wolf shall lie with the lamb, and the calf shall lie, and the calf and the lion together. And this is similar to the future world when it says the Mashiach comes, they shall neither harm nor destroy in all my holy mountain, for the name of God will be known. In the ark, Noah's family and the animals lived 365 days, and they all got along. The animals got along. Yet, what happens afterwards? God commands Noah to leave the ark. Similarity number 5. Adam and Eve have 3 sons: Cain, Abel, and later Seth, Sheth. Noah has 3 sons: Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And interestingly, in the Bible, the Torah, human beings, humanity is called Bnei Adam, children of Adam. In the Talmud and the Midrash, we're known as Bnei Noach, children of Noah. So on figure 2.3 on page 49, you have the 5 similarities between the creation story and the ark story. Before I go on to the differences, any questions?
No question.
You're good? I'm assuming from the silence you guys are good. Okay. So although the background is...
Rabbi,
yes, Esther, go.
Well,
I can hear you.
the both in the both story, creation story and ark story, the animal, what they are a object that Adam and Noah, they have to care, because one work for Adam was to care all the creature in the Gan Eden, and the Noah in the ark, he was to care for them.
That's an interesting similarity. Yes, I didn't. Well, Adam wasn't commanded to take care of the animals in particular. He was commanded to work, to guard, and to work the garden. Okay, but nice similarity. They didn't think of that. Very nice. Okay, let's look at the 3 differences. Although they have similarities, there are differences. Difference number 1. Adam and Eve were planted in the Garden of Eden that was planted by God. It was an object created by God, as opposed to the ark which was created and manufactured by Noah. It says clearly, you go back before, it says, God says to Noah, make for yourself an ark. Difference number 1. Difference number 2. The computer's going a little slow today. The Garden of Eden was not created in the beginning. The Garden of Eden existed, or exists maybe, in this physical world. That means it was created after the waters receded. When the God created the world on day number 1, waters encompassed the world, and it was only on day 3 that the land saw. As opposed to the story of Noah, we see that Noah exists in his ark, and while the flood waters are raging outside. So these 2 realities existed simultaneously. Difference number 3. Adam and Eve have 3 sons, only 2 survive. Cain kills Abel, and all of Cain's progeny are killed in the flood, as opposed to Noah's children, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. They are the building blocks for future humanity. As you see in text number 5, and these were the children of Noah that went out of the ark. Shem, Ham, and Yafet, and from them dispersed the entire world. Now, these differences might seem minor, but as you've known from previous Torah classes, every detail in the Torah is not minor, it's significant. And as we delve deeper, we'll discover how these small differences really show us the fundamental difference between the pre-flood world and the post-flood or the post-ark world. Okay, and you see here, here it is in text in figure 2.4. You have the three differences right over there. All right, here we go. Now let's start to answer some questions. So now that we know what we know, before we start to answer the questions, we're going to ask one more question. When you're writing a paper, you write a rough draft, and then you tear it up, it's not good, and you rewrite it. Sometimes you rewrite it again until you get what you feel is perfect. It almost sounds like that God made a rough draft. The world got corrupted. God crunched it up, threw it away to the waste bin, and started again. But does God make mistakes? Why did God create the world? Why didn't God create the world right the first time? So we have God creating the world, it gets messed up, and God makes a better version the second time. If God knows everything, and to err is human, to be perfect is divine, why didn't Hashem make it perfect the first time? So here we have a recap of all the questions. Right? We have very quick. Why can't it happen again? Why the long process?
Rabbi,
why a rainbow? And why begin with plan B?
Can I answer?
Someone has a question?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Rabbi, was it not so much that God did a rough draft and it didn't come out so well, but it was in the making of the nature of man that created all of this chaos and tumult and imperfection. It was not God's fault. It was man's, free choice that made the screw ups.
Okay, so then we loop back to question number one. So why can't it happen again? So obviously something had to change.
Unless God promises that it won't.
So then there's no free choice. So but obviously the fact that it can't happen again represents a better reality. So why didn't God just start off that way in the first place? Why didn't God make an indestructible world? Let's go. We're going to learn some Hasidus and everything will be clear. So in order to understand this, we have to keep in mind that it's not that God is the creator. Not just that God is the creator and we are the created beings and we are just pawns. There is a relationship that humanity has to God and God has to humanity. What is a relationship? What does it mean, our relationship? Our relationship means that I choose to be connected to you and you choose to be connected to me. That is a relationship. It's built. If you build a machine, let's say, and program it to act in a certain way, that's not a relationship. Why? Because what you're really doing is you're interacting with yourself. A relationship means that the other being, the other person, has free choice. If the other person is just a yes man the entire time, then it's not a relationship. You're only interacting with yourself. So a true relationship means when there's a back and forth of ideas. I know we just came from the elections, but when does government truly work? when there's a back and forth of ideas, when there's interchanging of ideas. When there's only one voice heard in the room, that's not a relationship. A relationship means there's a freedom, a free exchange of emotions and ideas. That's a relationship. Now, let's subdivide. There are two types of a relationship. We'll call it a top-down relationship and a bottom-up relationship. There you go. Top-down relationship is that God decides, for example, this is what I'm going to do. And you are, because you exist, you are the beneficiaries of this. A bottom-up relationship is that the recipient decides and initiates what it is that he wants, and because of that initiation, because of that inspiration from below, that causes a relationship from above. Let's take for an example, and there are many examples, but for now, for text number 6, we're going to use a teacher-student example. Look at text number 6. This is what the Rebbe explains, and this is also going to help us in our story. Text number 6. We can better understand. This is on page 52 in your books. We can better understand the difference by using the example of a teacher imparting ideas to a student. One approach is that the teacher explains the idea to the student, but does not train the student to understand it on their own. The second approach is that the teacher provides the student with the tools by means of which student can study and understand the idea on their own. Before we read paragraph number 2, which one's better, in your opinion? No one wants to chime in? Which one's better? Bunch of shy people. Ira, what's the answer?
I don't think it's a matter of which one is better. I think it's a combination of both.
Oh, there you go. You've been going to Chabad. The answer is, it depends how you look at it.
No, it depends.
Each one has its advantage. Each one has its advantage. Paragraph number 2. In regard to the personal development of the student, if you want to develop the student, the second approach is better. As only this approach imparts the ability to independently learn. But in regard to the quality of the reception of the idea itself, the first approach is better, because the way the student understands it cannot be compared, is so far inferior to the way the teacher understands it. So we have two things over here. I should have a bunch of... Okay, no, wait, I jumped ahead. Okay, so this is important stuff. So when you're teaching somebody, when you're explaining something, the teacher's explaining a student, what is it that we want? Well, it's not one or the other, it's both, like Ira said. But on one hand, we want the student to be able to learn on their own. On the other hand, we want the student to own and understand the totality of the concept. But if the teacher explains it, the student will get the totality of the concept, but he won't learn on his own. If the teacher takes off the training wheels, the student will learn on his own, but won't have the totality of the concept. So but it's important to point out that both models, top down or the bottom up, require a relationship, meaning a willful participation of both parties. For an example, if the student doesn't engage his mind, he won't be able to receive the information. Or if the student uses that information in a destructive manner, the teacher will stop teaching. The difference is like this: that in the top-down model, the relationship runs in one direction. The teacher gives, and the recipient receives. In the bottom-up model, the student is the initiator. He's coming and he wants to learn. And because the teacher has given the student the tools to learn, the student now possesses that ability to independently regarding the current state of the relationship. So now let's apply it to the story of Noah and creation. Let's look at text number 7. The Rebbe continues. Page 54. The goodness that the world possessed before the flood derived not from its own nature, but from the fact that it was so created by God. Therefore, when the sins of the generation of the flood corrupted the world, when the student took what the knowledge that the teacher gave him and corrupted it and used it in a destructive manner, the teacher stopped teaching. There was no longer any purpose to its existence. The world had fallen so low and so far distant itself from its creator that the divine desire for a world was withdrawn. On the other hand, after the flood, the world possessed the ability to elevate and refine itself on its own. Therefore, even when it falls to a very lowly state, it can repent and lift itself up. This is why God made a covenant that never shall all flesh be cut off, and never again will there be a flood, regardless of the world's moral state. So in the top-down relationship, it's in the top-down model, the relationship is dependent on both to be engaged, like we said before. If the teacher stops teaching, then there's no relationship, because there's no chance for the student to initiate something, because it's only a top-down relationship. So as soon as you have sin and the teacher is disgusted and leaves the class, so to speak, the class is over. So that's what happened pre-flood. The relationship that God had to humanity was a top-down relationship. As soon as the teacher God gave up, it's over. After the flood, after the flood, Hashem basically, essentially said like this, that my creations now possess the tools, the ability, not only to receive what I'm giving, but also to initiate and create a relationship. And therefore, even when it's very, very, very bad, and they've done very destructive and terrible things, they still have the ability to create a relationship. So now we can go back to question number 1. Question number 1 is, why can't it happen again? The answer is, there you go. Why can't it happen again? Because the very reason why God destroyed the world to begin with falls away. God destroyed the world because the relationship at that point was he was the sender, the giver, and humanity was only a recipient. That's the only type of relationship. There was no connection bottom up. And therefore, once they got discussed, the relationship over. But now that after the flood, the relationship changed. And now no matter how bad humanity gets, we can always recreate that connection. There's no purpose for God to destroy the world. Any questions before we move on? Yay, nay?
No.
Okay. Let's look at the rainbow for a moment. Right? We spoke about in other times, and I think we mentioned this last week, that just like God created the world in this 10-step formula, so every human being is a microcosm of the world. So you have the macro and the micro. Like King Solomon said, also the world he placed in their hearts. That means, so the fundamental change in nature of the human being wasn't only a change in the nature of the human being, because we mentioned last week, as human beings go, so goes the world. So there was also a fundamental change in the world. And now we can understand this new natural phenomenon, which was the rainbow. What's a rainbow? Text 2.5. What's a rainbow? We're going to get a little bit into physics and light and everything else. How does the rainbow occur? So we have. Oh, here we go. We're actually going to play a video. Let me mute my here.
A ray of light is made up of the same 7 colors seen in a rainbow. This is seen when a ray of light is shone at an angle through a prism, a triangular-shaped piece of glass. Light slows down as it goes from air to glass and causes the ray of light to bend. This is called refraction. Each color in a ray is bent at a different angle, allowing 7 colors to be seen. The red light gets bent the least, while the violet light bends the most. Sunlight, therefore, is key to the science of rainbows. Light travels more slowly through water than air, so that raindrops act as prisms, bending, separating, and reflecting the light that shines through them. We can see a rainbow because the separated light is reflected toward our eyes.
I put that video in so I can get a drink of water, just in case someone missed the 4th grade. Okay, so actually, I was reading that there's actually a lot more colors, so we can only perceive 7.
Rabbi,
That's
Rabbi,
right.
Yes.
Rabbi,
Yes.
I have a question about the rainbow.
Oh boy.
Because when coming the ETA, this the tropical torment here, the storm
Yeah.
on Sunday, yeah, I wrote to Sid that I hope that coming as fun as possible the rainbow, and she told me something that I don't understand really. The rainbow is not something so good.
No.
I don't understand. So
Why? Look at text number 1b. It says over there, when God says, when I want to bring destruction upon the world, I'll remember my covenant, and the rainbow is the sign. So whenever we see a rainbow, what it really is saying is that God wants to bring destruction to the world. The world is deserving of punishment, and instead, he remembers his covenant. That's why the rainbow is not a good sign. It's beautiful. It's not good. And that's why we make a blessing when we see a rainbow, that thank God, the King of the world, who remembers his covenant and keeps his promises. Okay,
Rabbi, I'm still not understand. Sorry, because I know that we have a special prayer. If I saw a rainbow, we have a special prayer for that.
yeah. What's the prayer?
I don't remember.
I said the blessing is we thank God for remembering his promise not to destroy the world. We thank God for remembering your promise, and keeping your covenant. Because a rainbow is a sign that the world that deserves destruction, and God is not doing it because he keeps his promise. That's why there's a custom. We don't point out rainbows to people. The rainbow is beautiful. Again, listen,
yes, it's
what
beautiful.
I'm saying is the rainbow is beautiful. It's not a sign of good.
But why our Hashem that create the rainbow so beautiful to tell us how beautiful?
Because in your mind, you think that it should be correlated, that something that is a promise of lack of destruction should be dark and everything else. Doesn't necessarily have to be that way. That we've decided it's out. That's not necessarily the way it has to be. I was reading an article a while ago. There's a whole controversy. The Nazi doctors, when they did medical experiments on people in the camps, some of the best. I mean, now with the 3D medicine, but until let's say 20, 30 years ago, the best books on anatomy with pictures of anatomy came from Nazi doctors. And the whole question is, should it be used? What do you think?
This is complicated. Very complicated.
It's not complicated. The answer is yes. And of course, if you can save someone's life, yes, it came from an ugly place. It's very good. It came from an ugly place. Life is very complicated. Like we learned last week, after Adam ate from the tree of knowledge, the world's not black and white anymore. The world's gray. Yeah, that's maybe a rainbow is another reminder. It's a beautiful thing. It reminds us of something not so beautiful. Yeah, life's complicated. Yeah, that's the way Hashem created the world. Okay, so now we can understand. Now that we understand.
Thank you, Rabbi.
No, of course. Now we can understand that the rain refracts light. So now we can understand why the phenomenon of the rainbow expresses the new reality of the post-ark world. Look at text number 8. The Rebbe continues. Page 56. The Torah states, "My bow I've set in the cloud, and it shall be a sign as a covenant between me and the world." The commentaries ask, the rainbow is a natural phenomenon, formed when the rays of sunlight are reflected in a certain way through the mist. So how does it serve as a sign of the covenant? It's promising not to bring a supernatural event, and he's using a natural phenomenon. The answer given is that this natural phenomenon itself, the fact that under certain conditions, sunlight and clouds produce a rainbow, was created by God after the flood. Before the flood, the world was more materialistic, and other commentaries expand upon this, because if this rainbow existed before the flood, then how could it be a sign if it regularly occurred? So that's why they say that the rainbow only was a sign, because the sign has to be unique. So also the clouds, which form when a mist rises up from the earth, and remember those words, that's important, we're going to discuss them in a moment, were coarser and did not possess the ability to receive and reflect the rays of the sun. Therefore, there were no rainbows. And when the world became more refined, the clouds too became more refined and translucent. And they now possess this ability to reflect and radiate the ray of colors contained within the light of the sun. Therefore, the rainbow serves as a sign of the covenant between me and the world, end quote, as it expresses the unity and expresses the purity and refinement of the world had attained. Originally, the world's greatness was not an inherent quality that it possessed. It was a top-down relationship, only the product of in which the manner in which God created it. It was only as a result of the flood, the bottom-up relationship, the initiation of the bottom that God imbued a new quality in the world, the ability to elevate. This line is important. The ability to elevate and refine itself on its own. This is why the phenomenon of the rainbow comes to exist only after the flood. A rainbow was formed by the convergence of sunlight and clouds. But the rays of the sun themselves represent the divine radiance bestowed from above, are an abstract color. The colors of the rainbow are extracted by means of the clouds forming by the mist rising from the earth. And only when this rising mist is sufficiently refined and transparent to reflect the light of the sun. Since the world's ability for self-refinement came only after the flood, it was only then the rainbow was set in the clouds. So pre-flood, the top-down relationship. The world was only in a state where it can absorb from the divine. It can only absorb sunlight. It can't refract. It can't reflect. But once the post-flood, where you have the mist rising up from the earth, which is a quote from the beginning of Genesis, that mist rising up from the earth represents that bottom up, the initiation, of humanity the way it is now. That gives us the ability to not only absorb, but also to refract, to understand God's plan. So now this answers the question: why was the question number 2 is Why the rainbow? Sorry, that's question number 3. Why the rainbow? Because of the rainbow represents the physical manifestation of the new reality. That now the relationship between God and humanity has changed. Okay. Now that we learned all this, let's go back to question number 2. Question number 2 was, why did God have to take a whole 365 years to destroy the world? It was a whole long process. But now that we understand that the very relationship between God and humanity was different before the flood and after the flood, so in the top-down relationship, God can just destroy the flood, destroy the world. But now God was changing the status quo. Now God wanted humanity to participate. So that's why God had to have Noah build the ark. The relationship, the bottom up relationship, the terms of relationship now are dependent on the recipient. It's all about what the recipient can accomplish. So God, even though, yes, God can do it in a moment, that's not what it's about. Now, it's about giving the recipient the time to form and to recognize and to appreciate, and that took 1 year, and this is why the survival of Noah and his family had to go through a natural process, the rain and the receding of the rain and the drying of the land, and everything had to go through. Obviously it was supernatural rain, but natural cycle of rainfall, gradual receding of waters, and so on and so forth over the year. The pumps had to work. It takes time to pump out that kind of water, and because if God would not have done that, then the very foundation of the world would not have worked. Because now the world was going to be founded, the inherent properties was going to be founded on a bottom-up relationship where a human being can initiate the relationship with God, and this explains also the difference we said before. Here we go. Difference where we said previously that God put Adam in a garden planted by God, and after the ark was made by Noah, was humanly constructed, because it had to be that way. Otherwise, the whole message wouldn't get across, and that explains another point. Why Adam only has one son. There you go. Adam only has one son, which is Chase. Everyone else is destroyed. They're representing the one direct giver, the top-down relationship, the one giver, as opposed to Noah having the three sons, the 3 children, and spreading out, each different person having their unique relationship with God. It's plurality, not just diversity, not just homogeneous. Any questions? Okay. I'm guessing I'll take that as a no.
No. I have a question. How many years between creation, or between Adam and Noah?
How old was Adam when Noah was born?
Could be. That's a good question.
No, I'm asking, is that your question?
No. How many years between the creation of Adam and when Noah was, I guess, when the ark happened, when he was 600 or whatever, however.
Oh, so if I remember correctly, the flood happened in the year 1656.
Okay.
I'll get a book. I'm pretty sure. Hold on.
Okay.
I'm coming right back. So if I remember correctly, it was in 1656. If I remember correctly. I mean, I make a lot of mistakes all the time.
I'm sure you're remembering it correctly. I was just curious.
Right. I think in the back of the Chumash, a lot of the Chumash and the Art Scroll and the Kahat Chumash has Maybe this one doesn't. This is an older print. They have a timeline. I guess this one. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay.
How many years did Adam live?
Oh,
How
okay.
many years did Adam live? Yes.
Yes.
930. That was
we did
discussed in class last week. That Adam was supposed to live 1,000 years, and he gave 70 of his years to Adam. Yes, I was right. So Noah never met Adam. Noah was born in the year 1056.
Now, how many years did Cain live?
How many years did Cain live?
Not mentioned. It says he lived for seven generations, but it doesn't say. Torah doesn't say how many years did Cain live. It just says Shais, because Cain was a rejected child because he killed his brother. Seth, Shais was the main child. It only lists like the main child.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now we answered question number 2. Why the long process? Because it had to come through a natural process. It had to come through human interaction. Now let's get to maybe the most complicated question is, why didn't God create the world that way in the first place? Why did God start with plan? Why didn't God create the world with plan B in the first place? Like the old joke goes, this guy goes to the rabbi after a long speech and says, "Rabbi, didn't feel well, I have to leave. Can you summarize your 45-minute speech and give it to me in 2-3 minutes?" The rabbi says, "Yeah, sure." So he starts speaking. So the congregant says, "Why didn't you?" Right? So if God could have created the world perfect the first time, why didn't he? So now we're going to explain. The Rebbe says, look at text number 9. Page 59. The world was created for the sake of Torah. And this is important stuff. This is heavy stuff. And the goal of the giving in the Torah, it says, if you pay attention to the wording in Parshas Yitro, it says that God descended on Mount Sinai and Moses ascended on top of Mount Sinai. Those aren't just words. Those are saying that there was a unification of an elevation of below and a descent of above. There was a unification, bringing heaven down to earth and uniting the two. The purpose of the Torah was to achieve a union of the higher realms and the lower realm. Therefore, the world needed to incorporate both states, both types of relationships, the top-down mode of existence and the bottom-up mode of existence, so that subsequently the two could be unified. This was the change achieved by the flood. Before the flood, the nature of the world was, generally speaking, a top-down existence, whereas after the flood, it was defined by a bottom-up existence. If God would have created the world only in one way, then they wouldn't have this ability to unite the two. Wouldn't have this ability to unite the top down and the bottom up. So plan A, the beginning from the world until the destruction of the flood, that wasn't a mistake. That wasn't, oh shoot, let me toss that into history and start again. That was a preparation. That was part A. And God had to clean that and now do part B. So the goal of creation, and when God revealed to us and gave us the Torah, was on one hand we should be receptive of all the divine gifts, and we spoke about in previous classes the concept of bittul, of allowing yourself to receive, putting yourself aside. God's talking, so to speak, and you listen. On the other hand, God didn't only want us to do nasa that we will do. He also treasured the fact that we said nishma. We will listen. We will take a proactive role, a creative role, and we will do our best. So God gave us the written law, and the oral law continues to expand and expand. And that's where the relationship with God is, in the oral law. It's in the Gemara. It's in the halacha. It's in the midrash. That's where the relationship is. That's the juice, the good stuff of the relationship. That's like the mist that rises from the earth and interacts with sunlight and generates a rainbow. So the Torah, the written law, only has one way of looking at, only has one word. But the midrash and the Talmud and the Mishnah and the halacha have various ways, because once you get the human, the bottom up interaction, then there's a whole new world of a reflection of different light open up. And this is the deeper reason why God didn't just destroy the world and create a new one in its place. God preserved a sample, a universe of his original creation, in order that one day these could be able to be joined. He had to have a sample of pre-flood and post-flood together. They exist. Remember, there was the three differences, and one of the differences was that before the creation, there was the waters that existed before the Garden of Eden, and we said by the flood they existed simultaneously. Why did they have to exist simultaneously? In order that later that the new world be incorporated into the old world. So that was the unification of the top-down approach, a top-down world, and the bottom-up approach. And that answers question number 4. I hope it answers question number 4. Any questions before we finish up? Nisht? All right. All right, let's apply it to our own lives. Like Ira said, there has to be a combination of the two. And where in our lives we're constantly challenged to find the right balance, the right integration of the two models. The top down, when do we be quiet and listen, and when do we have to take initiative? So as we said, the teacher-student model is only one example of the two types of relationships. Two types can exist in many different roles in our life, where there's a giver and the recipient. And sometimes we are the giver and sometimes we are the recipient. Let's look at a few examples of these types of relationships and discuss the pros and cons. And we have the question for discussion on page 59. What are the pros and cons of each of these two types of relationships? So you see in figure 2.6 on page 60, we have over here. You guys want to chime in and we'll do this, and we'll do this together. Let's go through it. So the teacher and student. What's the teacher list? The teacher lectures. The student listens. What's the pro of that? Anybody?
The pro, the teacher is imparting knowledge.
The con?
The con is that if the teacher is particularly boring and does not make the knowledge or present the knowledge to the student in a way that the student can understand it, it's going to be lost.
I had a few teachers like that. They were geniuses, couldn't teach. The bottom up, teacher trains student in learning skills and tools. What's the pro of that?
The pro there is that the teacher observes the students applying what they supposedly were supposed to have learned from his lecture.
And the con?
The con is, depending on the type of classroom, it could be opened up for disciplinary problems.
All right, so then we also have the employer and the employee. We have the employer gives instructions which the employee follows. The pro?
You get done the work you want to get done.
The con? What's the con then?
The employee doesn't take any initiative.
Doesn't do anything else. Does exactly
Right.
like a goylem.
Mhm.
All right, let's go to the next one. Philanthropist and a beneficiary. Philanthropist contributes money to feed and clothe the needy. Well, obviously the pro is that he gives money. What's the con? What could be a con there?
He doesn't really get directly involved.
That's interesting. I was thinking something else. I didn't think of that. I was thinking of the people get dependent. They don't do anything because they know that they become what do they call it? Dependent on
Yeah, dependent or reliant.
right. On the other hand, when the philanthropist funds educational, and so on one hand, he's giving maybe less, or he's not just a handout. Well, let's do two more: parent-child. It reminds you, by the way, there's this story. I don't know if it's true. Going back to the employee-employer story, I once read a story of a guy who worked in a company and made a massive mistake. I think it cost the company like $10,000. And the guy walked in. I think it might have been with Microsoft. And he walked into a supervisor's office and with his resignation. And the boss, and he's like, hey, I guess you're firing me. I'm resigning. So the boss said, absolutely not. So what are you talking about? I said, we just spent $10,000 teaching you what not to do. Now you can do a better job. Parent-child. Parent provides child with all their needs. Well, the pros there. What's the con?
That the child is not going to be independent.
Child's not going to be independent. On the other hand, where the parent offers guidance, the kid's got to schwitz a little bit, but he builds up his own. Let's do the final one. The final one's important. God and us. God commands us to obey. We obey. The pro is?
We obeyed.
It's like, the pro is you're alive. The con is you're dead. Yeah, it's like,
What book do you want to be written into?
right. I don't know. There's two sides to the argument here. No, the pro is that we got. The pro is that we listen to God. The con is we're mindless followers. We just obey. God doesn't want us to just obey. When we use our own understanding, creativity to understand the meaning of the mitzvot and the relevance to our own lives, then so the pro is that initiative. The con is obviously we can never reach as high as we would if God would have given it, because we're human. Questions? All right, time for key points.
Lesson 2. Noah's Ark. 1. The story of Noah's Ark raises a number of compelling questions. If the principle of free choice dictated that the world could become so corrupted that the very basis of its existence was destroyed, why can't it happen again? Why a year-long flood and an ark that Noah labored for decades to build? Couldn't have God destroyed the world in an instant and then created a new one? How does the rainbow symbolize the new world order generated from the ark? If the first version of creation was vulnerable to such catastrophic failure, why didn't the Creator go straight to Plan B? 2. The various relationships that comprise our lives come in two forms. A top-down model in which one party gives and the other receives. B, a bottom-up model in which the recipient is equipped with the tools to initiate the relationship on their own. Each of these two models has advantages over the other. 3. Before the flood, the relationship between the Creator and His creation was defined by a top-down model. When the world ceased to become worthy of the divine gift of life, the entire basis for the relationship was undermined. After the flood, God established the relationship on the bottom-up model. The world now inherently possesses the ability to elevate itself and interact with the divine. So the possibility for a renewed relationship always remains. 4. A rainbow is formed when water vapor rising from the earth interacts with sunlight streaming down from above to extract from the light previously unrevealed colors and beauty. Thus, the rainbow symbolizes the new bottom-up model for the relationship between Creator and creation. 5. The post-flood world was not a new creation. Rather, it was generated from the remnants of the pre-flood world preserved in the ark. As a result, our own existence incorporates both models, empowering us to draw on the advantages of both worlds. 6. The story of Noah's Ark teaches us to strive for the best of both worlds in our relationships with each other and with our Creator. On the one hand, we need to learn to be receptive to what is granted to us. On the other hand, we need to draw on our own resources to initiate new and innovative interactions with the divine gifts of life.
Jacob and Esau.
Next week, good stuff, and it's very important because next week we're reading about Jacob and Esau in the Torah portion. So it's actually going to be on the Torah portion. It's going to be very, very interesting. I hope you enjoyed it. Any last questions before we sign off? All right, I'll take that as a no. We hope you join us. Spread the word. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay dry. All the best, guys. Have a great week.
Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
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 Bye, y'all.